build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me ball, but I can see between to a dusty yard and a long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober as good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers. Matty, this is episode 137. We're joined a special guest on tonight, Colin Leslie, author of the Bestie to Beastie to Belgium book, which has just come out. Colin, thanks for reaching out to us to come on. How are you doing?
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm doing fine, especially after Hibs winning on Saturday.
It's always good, eh?
Yeah.
I got the order of the name of the book right as well, because it was my biggest fear coming, because every kids, I can't get names wrong all the time.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Belgium. Yes, I got it right. I had written it down to cheat, but sometimes I write it in. I still can't read my writing, so I still take that as a success. Also with us tonight, we've got John. John, how you doing?
Aye, very good, thanks. I was just about to ask Colin in the Red if that was a special advance copy that he got for the podcast, especially.
I got it for my birthday 2 weeks ago, so it's it's bought and paid for £18.75 club shop. The last two copies, actually. They were going to have to order more in for you, he said to me, because I got picked up the last two.
Yes.
I've maybe just spoiled somebody's present that's not got it yet. Normally listens.
Checking their bank statements, see if they right, so tonight we'll talk about the book, how that came about, etc., and then we'll talk about the game on Saturday where we won 2 weeks in a row, which is good, against Ross County, and then we'll have a wee look ahead to the Celtic game on Sunday. We've not got anybody in between that, have we? No, that's good.
Quiet week
right.
for a change.
Couple of things I've got right as well. Starting well means it's downhill from here. Right, so the Bestie to Beastie to Belgium. Colin, tell us about the book.
Yeah, I suppose it's a book that's always been in me. It's my formative years, basically. You know, when I first started watching Hibs, I actually saw my first game in 1979 that I remember, and by the 80s, I was, my passion for Hibs had gone into overdrive. As I say in the book, it was the Georgie best of times. It was the worst of times, the 80s. It was a real green and white knuckle ride. It was mad. It was bad. It was certainly no glamour, no frilly corporate boxes. And we did have an electronic scoreboard, but that went kaput as well, like just about everything else in the 80s. But just a really interesting decade to be involved in. I was getting lifted over the turnstiles at the start of the decade, and by the end of the decade, I was bevying with the rest of the Hibs fans in Liege, and Hibs were back in Europe.
And what was the first game you went to? Do you remember it?
First game I remember was actually beating Hearts in the Scottish Cup quarter-finals in '79, and Gordon Ray scored the winner. Big George Stewart scored as well, and I thought, this is the life for me. Beating your rivals. You could tell it was something special even at that age, and all the cars were tooting the horns after, and people dancing and celebrating, and then it quickly nosedived from there.
That's the 80s and the 90s weren't around for the derby success, were they?
No, they weren't. They were pretty grim, and I cover that in the book, warts and all, and probably put a few Hibs players through the mix and grilling them why that was the case.
So how did the book come about then? How did you kind of decide to put pen to paper for it?
Yeah, well, I've been a journalist for nearly 30 years now, and I'd written a few other books. I'd never actually done one solely on Hibs. I did Eric Shadler's biography, which was a really emotional book to do. Shades was such a hero to Hibs fans, but he had an interesting life and a tragic end, as we know. He played for Stirling Albion, Dundee, Dumbarton at the end, so there was more to it than just Hibs, albeit that was his absolute first love. With the 80s book, I think lockdown probably had something to do with it. I was maybe looking for a new project, and I had that kicking about at the back of my mind, and it wasn't through boredom or anything. It just seemed like the obvious book for me to do, because if I was ever on Mastermind, that'd probably be my specialist subject, dull Hibs games in the 80s.
The history of the 0-0 draw.
Yeah, well, Alec Miller helped me out with a few of them.
And what are some of, obviously you don't want to give too much away because we want folk to go and buy it. What are some of the highlights in the book that folk would expect to see?
First of all, I should say it wasn't all grim. I'm maybe painting an unfair picture. It started off grim. Hibs were really in the doldrums. They were coming out the Turnbulls, Tornadoes era, and the club was skint. It was really struggling. Even Pat Stanton, George Stewart and Jimmy O'Rourke, they lifted the place in terms of, giving the players a bit of a buzz, but, club just did not have the money. They were scouring Edinburgh looking for public parks to train on. They were buying footballs out of sports shops. That's how bad it was. People nowadays would not believe how skint Hibs were, and no state-of-the-art training facilities. But things got better. I think by the mid-80s, we started playing some exciting football again. John Blackley could be deemed a bit of a failure, but we had some absolutely amazing cup runs under Blackley. We beat Celtic twice in the same season, and they happened to go on and win the league. I can't remember who finished second, but I know it was a close run thing. I think it might have gone down to the last 7 minutes of the season, but that showed you what Hibs were capable of on their day. But you'd be tearing your hair out because we beat Celtic on penalties after a 4-4 draw in the League Cup under the lights at Easter Road. Absolutely electric. Everybody dancing and singing. We played Celtic 3 days later at Easter Road in the league, got beat 5-0. And that was Hibs in the 80s. But then by the end of the decade, things definitely turned round, and Duff and Gray came in, a lot of razzmatazz, a lot of big promises. And to an extent, they delivered on that at first. They brought in Steve Archibald. John Collins was already at the club, but he became absolute top-class player. Andy Gorham. Guys like Houchin and Gareth Evans were pretty decent calibre, so we looked a good side. But then, of course, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, and we were on the brink of going under by the end of the decade.
I was born in 82, so the era that you've written about is kind of like my formative years, like in life. Never mind, being a Hibs fan. I didn't start going to watch Hibs properly or more until about 97, 98. And I was curious there when you were talking about like Hibs being skint. Have you got any idea how skint comparatively to like other football clubs around that time? Because I've just got this sort of picture in my head that clubs were all pretty poorly run. It was just a case of like it's not necessarily the businesses that they are today. Yeah,
I think there's a bit of truth in that. I mean, ability had a lot to do with it, and there's some really good sides in Scotland at that time. So the cash side, if we leave that to one side, you had Aberdeen, you had Dundee United. They were competing with the very best in Europe, so that kind of showed what you're up against. And the Scottish game was also very good back then. The 60s was perhaps a golden era with Celtic winning the European Cup, but the 80s wasn't far behind it.
Right.
And Dundee United and Aberdeen obviously brought a bit of cash in from those runs, and there wasn't season ticket sales back then, so Hibs probably only had about 1,000 season ticket holders if you're lucky. It was really very much a pay at the gate type thing. So if the team were winning, playing well, people would turn up, and if they weren't, they would stay away. So the time that you were, Hibs crowds would be down to about 3,000 sometimes. It was really, right. Yeah.
That's what I thought as well, Colin. But always, when you read the message boards, you hear people saying, "I've had a season ticket for 45 years," and you think, "That's season tickets in the 80s."
They only say that if they've been accused of being a jambo. It's like that's the go-to defence saying, "No, I've had a season ticket for 40 years." Have you? Aye.
They were pretty cheap back then, season tickets, but not if you had to go to the centre stand or north stand. That was a bit of a, that was your Barton Brigade and the 50 Club and all that. It was a bit of a treat to go there.
And you mentioned Steve Archibald earlier. I remember, I'm sure the story goes that we fought off interest for Liverpool to sign Archibald. Do you know if there was a truth in that? Is that kind of close to what happened?
And I didn't hear that one myself. I mean, he was obviously in demand. It was a real coup for Hibs. I think you've got to probably credit David Duff with that. I think his network of contacts, he'd got wind that Archibald would come, for the right money. And, I don't want to cast aspersions about how it was financed, but, what he was paid on paper, there was probably a bit more to the deal. It was quite a complex deal to get him.
You saying there was a second payslip kicking about something?
Put it in an envelope. You didn't get a pay slip with that.
But
Mad though, he signed something for Barcelona. It's direct for Barcelona.
That's it. I mean, I say it in the book. Barcelona actually bought Archibald to replace Maradona. Incredible. He reluctantly wore the number 10 shirt at Barcelona, and then his next stop's Hibs a couple of years later.
And he made the step up. Like you just have to say, he did well when he come to Hibs. A lot of players would be worried about that, but
yeah, he didn't crumble under the pressure, did he?
Took it in his stride. I actually went to his debut, so I'm older than John is. Obviously, you can see for looking at it. So, I remember my dad taking me to see Archibald's debut, and he was probably the first player that I was genuinely in awe of. Just like it was different class. These goal Tynecastle still gets talked about.
Yeah.
Now, do you know?
So.
Yeah, a fantastic player. And you mentioned Gorham as well. Like that, actually, the team Miller managed to put together not a bad team. Do you talk about kind of all the Miller years in the book?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I mean, Miller was there beyond the 80s, obviously. He was there well in the 90s, so it is concentrating on that early period. And I think I was pretty tough on Miller, more than a little tough, actually, in my fanzine days. I really got ripped into him, and the football it'd make your eyes bleed. It was really bad. But he had a hell of a job to do, that kind of legacy from the early 80s. Hibs still had no money. They were still quite an amateur outfit in the way they were run. And, Miller, I'm not going to become a big apologist for Alec Miller, but he did a lot of things that were professionalised the club, and he got us back into Europe. And eventually led us to a cup. So yeah, he's kind of I've mellowed towards him over the years, definitely.
I think he's got a Champions League medal as well, eh? Miller.
Well, he'll tell you about that as well.
I'm sure he would. Sorry, John, you were going to come in there.
No, I was just going to have. I was just going to ask a question. I just had this mad theory in my head the other now. So obviously Hibs go through managers that are right or not. Like they didn't tend to last more than sort of 3 years at a time. How much do you think that's got to do with Alex Miller having been in charge for, was it just a shade over 10 years? And because of some of the eye-bleeding football that you described, like, do you think there's a lot of that still kicking about, or do you think it's anything to do with, do you think it's more to do with just that instant success that's required of all players, all managers now?
I think it's the latter, yeah, and I think social media fuels that. Fans are more demanding. Back then, managers did tend to get a bit longer, and given Miller 10 years, you could argue we benefited from that because he had a couple of waves of success, but I think he overstayed his welcome. By the time he left, he'd been there too long. He was becoming I was going to say defensive in his football, but he was becoming defensive in everything he did. He kind of had a bit of a rant against the fans that they were all against him, that they'd never accepted him. And when it gets to that stage, it's probably, time for a change, albeit it was a pretty horrendous change that we had.
Quite similar to sort of McInnes's current, just at Aberdeen recently. The length of time he was there, won one cup, lost a lot of big games. Fans got on his back for negative football, and he was an ex-Rangers man. It's quite a lot of sort of parallels.
Yeah, that's true. But I never bought into that ex-Rangers thing.
No, it was him that's
Aye, one or two people would, have a go at him for his association with Rangers, but it was never a thing. I think it's wrong to suggest that people targeted him because of his Rangers connection. They targeted him for other reasons because the football was really brutal at times, and the football was more geared towards not losing rather than winning. And when you had players like Keith Wright and McAllister and Darren Jackson and guys like that, you should be attacking. They were a joy to watch.
He managed to put together a couple. I think probably the first team that I remember being properly blown away was like that era with Jackson and McAllister and Wright. Jim Leighton and goals and everything. It was a good team to watch. Yeah.
There were good teams under Miller to watch, but 10 years is a long time. You've got to have a few bad teams in there as well.
Well, there definitely were.
But it has changed now, hasn't it? Because people are they're on the manager's case. With Sean Maloney, they're on his case after half a dozen games. That's incredible, I think, when you compare it to the time that Miller got.
On his case after half a dozen subs, never mind games.
Did you say that you'd interviewed a few players for your book, Colin?
Lots of players, yeah.
Lots of players.
Best
Was Jim Leighton one of them?
No, because it was strictly on the 80s, so the cut-off point, it would still be going.
Right, okay. The reason I ask is I was just wondering if anyone's ever asked him why he struggled with his kicking so much. I was thinking about with what Matty was saying there about the team that he was watching with some of the players that were playing. I remember a game, I think it was against Hearts, where he fluffed a kick out and Hearts scored for it. And it was just he was such a good keeper, and I wonder if it was just that sort of the change in the pass back rule. Like it didn't hurt him so much. There was just like a couple of occasions where it did really hurt him.
It's because he's a goalie. Goalies aren't very good at football. We've discussed this.
Matt Macy's still struggling with that.
That's why they're in goals.
Who was your favourite to interview, Colin?
The most entertaining to interview was definitely Joe Tortolano. I mean, he was a bit of the clown prince about him, but laugh a minute, his recollections of his red card against Man United for Gordon Ray's testimonial were just, I was just about falling over listening to him. He's very funny, very self-deprecating, maybe a bit too hard on himself. You can see that his confidence was shot to pieces when he played, and I think that's lingered over the years. He probably would have been a far better player if his confidence had stayed intact, but I think we'll probably come to that later in the podcast. The boo boys and whatever you want to call them. I know that's a tabloid phrase, but it doesn't help when people target players and really get on their case.
Tortolano was definitely a player that was sort of synonymous with that period at Hibs. He's one of the first players I remembered as well. But I also remember because he had that sort of weird relationship with the fans that folk just give him pelters for no good reason a lot of the time as well. The times he was perfectly fine, and then the silly folk gave him a bit of stick. But
he had some great stories, very very funny guy.
And I presume there's some good pictures in the book as well for those of us that kind of flick through past all the words and that just to get to the pic. Those are like comics and that. Because the strips of the era were fantastic as well.
There's Colin with the prop out again.
I'm just looking at it. Yeah, there's a whole section. Aye. Page 111 onwards.
Yeah,
there's a whole massive section on it.
I was chuffed actually because I self-published and I was able to do 64 pages of pictures, which if you go a publisher, you're kind of limited to maybe 20 odds. So some cracking images in there.
That's excellent.
There's the strip there that they've got out there now, the in-save one. It's the one with Cahoon's in there with the Mitre strip on. Came in the year the Mitre won the league and the Mitre won the cup. That's all in, yeah. It's he's got some. The strips are smart, when you look back.
Yeah, they were.
Did you get much help to the club for writing it?
I didn't really have to go to the club too much. I mean, it's in the club store. They've been really supportive in that way. But what I would say is players from that generation are just, they're incredible people. Really no trouble to any of them. You phone them up. Yeah, how can I help you? There's no side to them. They're just they just love the Hibs. Most of them, absolutely brilliant guys.
That's brilliant. And so you said you could get it in the club shop. Where else would folk be able to pick it up?
Yeah, you get it direct from me on bigcartel.com. So if you search for Bestie to Beastie to Belgium on bigcartel.com, it's on sale at Toppings Bookshop, on the corner of London Road. And it's also on sale in West Lothian and Bathgate at GP football programmes as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'll definitely put it on my Christmas list. I think it's a long time to wait till Christmas if there's still copies about. My birthday comes before Christmas. I'll get that.
I'm surrounded by boxes in this room. Don't worry, there'll be plenty left.
They just ask for all in the mind before
that's what will happen. Right, let's move on and talk about the game on Saturday. So I think I'll ask questions rather than contribute this one because I missed most of the game. Is it my sister's 50th birthday? So happy birthday to my sister. I think she'll be tuning in.
Big fan of the show.
Big fan of the show. Happy birthday anyway, Rebecca. So I missed it. I managed to kind of catch the last 20, 25 minutes of the game in the back of a taxi, watching it on my phone. So I did see the second goal. But Cole, you want to start off with, give us your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, not really what happened in the first half. The first half was quite uneventful, really. It was, can't remember any real chances. That their boy took a blatant dive. Actually, didn't they? They tried to get a penalty, similar to the one they got awarded and then turned over the other week as well. But it was totally blatant dive. The referee got that right. Cadden, I think, had a chance to put a ball on Nisbet's toe and fucking played it behind him. It's frustrating, so frustrating, because he's getting in good positions up and down that line, and I'm coming more and more on. I think it's Leon that keeps saying that he needs, or Jamie, pick somebody out rather than just playing it in the areas. And I'm starting to think he needs to get the head up a bit more often. Other than that, I think that was the first half. There was nothing. Second half, I thought we played some decent stuff at times, and the 2 goals were crackers. I mean, I reckon that's Jake Doyle. He's on 100% record for shooting and scoring now this season. That was about the first time I remember him shooting. Because I've been moaning about, how I've been going on about it on here. He doesn't shoot, and why does he not shoot? You know what I mean? Because the 2 of them. I mean, the first one, that Laidlaw, we know who Laidlaw is. He should have saved that, but the second one's a peach.
I think the keeper should have saved the first one.
Aye. If that was your keeper, we'd be getting hounded out of the place.
Your keeper would get hounded out of the place.
He was your keeper.
Well, that's right. I think he should save that. Because we thought at the time, at the other end to the west, I was going, that must have taken a deflection or something. But then when you see it on the telly, it never. And the goalie, they touched it. He should have saved it, I think.
Nah, so I set up above that one, and we couldn't work out to begin with how it hit the back of the net, because it seemed like the keeper had got, well, he did get hands to it, but I don't know if it's gone through the pair of them, weak wrists or whatever, or if it's just the flight of the ball or whatever's deceived them.
Well, what changed second half, Job?
Do you know what? Honestly, couldn't say. Hibs just came. There wasn't any obvious. There wasn't any substitutions at halftime. There wasn't any noticeable tactical switch. I mean, not that I'd be able to pick up in it anyway, but there was nothing like that. It just Hibs seemed to come out a bit brighter, a bit faster. I don't know. I honestly couldn't say.
I think Henderson.
What about you?
Henderson started the second half really well and kind of got us into the box a wee bit more. He had a couple of efforts that could have gone in on another day. Be nice to see him starting to hit the net on a regular basis in future. But it's what frustrated me in the first half was the midfield were just not getting forward and into the box. And as you said, there's a couple of great balls came in from Cadden. It's been the story of the last couple of months. Just nobody getting on the end of these good balls that are going into the box. So. Yeah, you felt it might be coming, but you also took 2 great goals from outside the box to finally break them down.
What's just quite interesting, because I don't know if any of you said Kevin Nisbet getting interviewed. Where was it? It was maybe like on Hibs TV or something through the week. I think he did the press conference. I'm trying to think where I saw this, but he mentioned about things not quite going for him, and what he said is, "I'm going front post and the ball's going back post, and then I'm hanging back and the ball's going." So I think they're obviously kind of. It's if there's luck involved in it as well, where the striker makes a run and he's just making good runs and the ball's going in another area, or is it a bad cross? Like what do you think is the problem there?
Yeah, I can't work it out.
I think it might be something as simple as what Colin suggested before, where the ball's getting pinged in by Cadden. Like if he's not looking at where the striker is, then it's kind of potluck. But it's like, how does Kevin Nisbet guess where it's going to go? Because he's making his run anticipating something, and it doesn't arrive.
That's what strikers do, isn't it? Strikers normally will make a run to an area and then hope for the cross to land at them. Yeah,
I mean, for me, I'm finding Nisbet really frustrating at the moment. I think you make your own luck some of the time. That's a pretty weak excuse that you're in the wrong place. I mean, that's your job. You do have to have that 6 minutes to kind of make the right run. And the thing that frustrates me most about him is just that anticipation that you're talking about. Be there in the right place. Be a bit braver. A lot of the time it's not going to come off, but make the run. And
he does say there's a couple of times on Saturday. Certainly one time I remember he wasn't in the box, and I think Henderson was in the box. I thought, why is he standing like 20 yards out, and we've got a midfielder ahead of him? It should, and I know we want the midfielder in the box as well, but surely the striker should be further forward. But he's almost playing in a midfield role at times, like he's so deep.
Yeah, you can see that.
And he just can't get in the box in time.
Maloney, I think, said after the game that he wasn't happy with the first half. I paraphrase because I can't remember word for word. I was only sort of half paying attention as usual. He said they point having possession if he didn't do anything with it, and that wasn't really what he was looking for the team. So in the second half, he wanted them to be a bit more aggressive and a bit more clinical. Well, do you think, John, that that's what we saw?
Maybe. Well, like we were definitely better second half, and it might even just be a case of that they got. I don't know if it's going to sound a bit condescending, but I don't know that Maloney is the kind of manager to give the players the hairdryer treatment. I don't think he would have gone through them. He's maybe just said to them, "You need to be getting that ball quicker, a bit faster."
Or fucking shoot.
Or shoot. It's funny, I was thinking before when you were talking about the difference between the first half and the second, I thought Jasper was more involved in the first half, but Hibs were not as good as they were second half when Jasper was less involved. And I wonder if there's maybe just been something's happened a bit differently there, where they say, right, you hang back a wee bit, Colin. You mentioned Henderson coming into the game a wee bit more. So I don't know if there was something deliberate took place there.
Jasper's surname or forename, John?
Surname.
Yeah.
Sylvester, first name.
Aye.
Still confusing, isn't it?
You're going to have to start with sticking post-it notes up around your monitor, Matt.
I wrote it down and I was like, because I was going to say Sylvester Jasper, and then when you said Jasper, I was like, oh, is that his first name? I was fucking confused with it. He's he looks like a good player though.
Yeah.
Would you be taking up that option to buy?
Probably too early to say. I mean, he's definitely got flashes of being a good footballer, and I think we've been so average last couple of months that these guys really stand out. And I'd say the same about Muller too. You know, good balance, can use both feet, can twist and turn both ways. You know, we've gone long enough without any players able to do that. So, you know, there's promise there. And we might even see the lesser spotted Melkerson at some stage as well.
At some point. He's in Hibs TV again, doing a Carabao challenge thing with Dimitri Mitchell. If you want to see him actually in person striking a ball at a goal, he's there doing it and he scores. Not to spoil it for anybody who's wanting to watch that bit of content. Henderson, I wanted to talk about as well. We're starting to see him find his feet at Hibs, Call.
I think so, yeah. He had got a couple of shots away, like and Colin mentioned there. He got the keeper made a save, and then there was he made two saves, but one was going through his legs, and I think he got away with the goalie. But he's more in the game. He's looking more. He's on the ball a bit more. I think when he first came, he looked a bit. I thought he would just get pushed off the ball for easy and that, but he looks a bit like he's coming onto a game now, and he links up quite well with Cadden and Doyle Hayes in that wee triangles and all that kind of stuff that they do, play nice wee balls between the three of them down the right hand side. So I think he's coming onto a game. He looks all right. He'll not be able to play on Sunday, of course, so we'll have to switch the team about again because he's still on loan. But he's impressing me. I totally agree with what Colin said there about Jasper as well, because he looks good, but he's not even played 90 minutes yet because he's not even got the legs for 90 minutes because he looked good in the first half, and then I think he was tracking back and won the ball for. I think it was one of Henderson's chances, and that was it though. After that, he didn't. You never saw him. He just obviously drifted out of the game, just not got the legs yet. So I wouldn't be running out to pay any money for him just yet. But keep it like it's promising. That's what I would say now for him.
And then we've got the goals. John, talk us through the first of Jake Doyle Hayes' goals. Or Jack Doyle Hayes if you're on Sky Sports.
Aye. It was a good hit, and like Colin was saying, we've not had anything like that from not just Jake Doyle Hayes, but most of the Hibs midfielders. Like, you didn't really see shots from outside the box. But Josh Campbell's done well to just kind of tee up for him, and Doyle Hayes hasn't been needed to think twice about it. He's just lashed it and stuck it in the back of the net.
Never done as well as Rocky though. That was
I
was a brilliant play.
I never saw that at the time, but I saw Malky Mackay having a bit of a greet and a whinge about it afterwards, and I had to go back and watch and see what he was talking about. And there is a wee suggestion of a trip there.
Just a suggestion.
Do you think he's right to feel aggrieved by it?
Well,
Are you going to talk about the shirt pull on Rocky?
There was shirt pulling. I was actually going to say just before it, Stevenson took a corner, which everybody was like, "What the fuck's going on here? You can't kick it that far." and then I think we won another corner for that corner, and then that's where the goal came from. But there was I think they were both jersey pulling in that, weren't they? And then Rocky just tripped the boy up, and Doyley's got the shot away that the goalie should have saved. But need a bit of luck now and again.
Aye, good on him. And then Colin, the Doyley's second goal. Talk. What am I trying to say? Talk to us about that.
It's a thing of beauty, unbelievable. You know, just his technique was magnificent. He not only took the ball in his chest, but to kind of reverse it back the way it's come from. And you see it in slow motion. You watch the replays, and absolutely meant it, which is nice because sometimes when you see a goal like that, your first instinct at Easter Road is, "Oh God, how you must have that." But no, absolutely great goal. And if he's got technique like that in his locker, then that's good to see.
Yeah, it's funny because he said on Down the Slope, didn't he? When he was on, he got interviewed up, I don't know, October or something back then, and he said he was more an attacking midfielder and he didn't want boxed off as a defensive midfielder, which we've all done. And then you see that and you go, maybe he's right, Maybe he's right.
But then if you look at his goal scoring record before Saturday,
that's
trebled
right.
it. Trebled it.
We had, I think, had his pals over for Ireland as well. We see the pictures of him in his strip outside the stadium with them all after it. So it's maybe need to get them over more often. I think you'll be glad that Phil Foden's mum was there though. You see that clip causing havoc. We mentioned it earlier on about the crowd reaction to the subs. So Jay Wright and Scott came on, and fair to say that the reaction from some sections of the crowd wasn't that favourable. Colin, what did you make of that sort of incident?
Me? Did you say Colin?
I went Colin. Sorry, but if you want to take it, you take it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been slightly overblown. I think from where I was sitting, I did hear a bit of booing, but I thought it was more for the players that were coming off. I could be wrong about that, of course. I mean, the players involved, Scott and Jay Wright, they're not everybody's favourites, it's safe to say. And if it is the case that people booed them, that's well out of order. We've got to get behind players, especially, I mean, the guy Scott, he's just looking hapless. He's looking short on confidence. Jay Wright, you could probably say the same. And it's not going to do them any good if people are like singling them out and booing them.
And dump Campbell into that group as well, Colin.
Sorry,
Campbell's the same in that same group.
I was going to say, I thought the same of Jake Doyle-Hayes. I thought he was a player that looked like he was lacking in confidence, and then he scored that goal. He scored the second, or sorry, even after he scored the first. In fact, it just looked like it breathed a new bit of life into him. And not everyone's going to score a wonder goal. The players that are lacking in confidence, but I definitely what you're saying, whether it's players going off who are getting booed, the decision to remove them getting booed, or the players coming on, it doesn't make any difference, because any player that's lacking in confidence is probably sitting there going, "Fuck, that's about me." We were talking about Joe Tortolano earlier on, Colin, about the stick that he came in for and how it lives with him to this day, pretty much. We would do well to just be a bit more supportive of the players. I know that's not a popular point of view, because I think the long-standing opinion of a lot of supporters, like the folk that you were talking about earlier, Colin, that have had season tickets for 40, 50 years when there was only 1,000 folk turn up, 1,000 season ticket holders during the 80s. It seems to be, you should be able to be critical of them, and you should be able to take criticism.
Paid my money, John. John, I've paid my money. I'll say what I want.
Paid my money, aye.
Aye, it's a difficult one.
But when has anyone ever seen a good performance out of berating someone or booing them? Or I personally don't understand that point of view.
But it's taking it to a new level when you're booing somebody that's not even kicked a ball yet. Because, I mean, I'm not a fan of Scott. You know, I don't personally see what he brings to the team, and I think he's not in great shape. But Saturday was one of his better contributions, definitely. You know, he did a couple of positive things, and he was there to basically, you know, kind of run at their defence, and he did as he was asked. And, you know, it's harsh. You know, I'm not going to become a sort of bang the drum for Scott, but there's no need for it.
No, I've got to say, I never
Realise how
heard
young
any
he
booing.
was.
I know he's only 22 or something, but
I was surprised when I saw that.
I didn't hear any booing. It was like a murmur. Like, I'm in the west, on the east, it sounded like there was a bit of noise, but maybe no, I wouldn't say it was booing. But where I sit, and I've probably told Matthew and John, but the row behind me upped and left when he brought the subs on. They actually upped and walked out, kicked a cup, and went downstairs and left because he was bringing Scott and Wrighton. And the laddie's a bit of an Archie McPherson, like he's one of them, you know, it's in like, obviously plays Football Manager and just talks shite for the whole game, but upped and left because that sub came on. And you think, who are you here to support? Like, just Hibs if they aren't in the squad. You know, it was just couldn't believe it. And then obviously, less than 5 minutes, it must have been a couple of minutes later, Jake Doyle scored goal of the season. They would have been bottom of the stair, and goal of the season's just been scored.
Yeah.
So, bit of karma there, but mad that people think like that, and that's just obviously the row behind me. But I'm sure that was probably replicated in other areas as well. I can't quite work that out. You pay your money to go complain and then walk out because a sub's been made that you didn't agree with. It's not even like they've done anything. They've not played well, but it's not like they've criticised the club or walked out on the club, or signed a pre-contract to leave. Or, you know what I mean? They've done nothing other than turn up, calling them wage thieves and all that kind of stuff. It's like they're not stealing a wage. They're actually working. They're not maybe playing well, but they're still at their work. You know what I mean? It's I can't quite understand the mentality of that.
What's better is it's not like we were 4-0 up and absolutely cruising, or 4-0 down and no chance to get back in the game. Game's right in the balance at that point. 1-0 up. You really need the crowd to be getting behind the team, you would think, and try to kind of see them over the line.
It does make you think there's Doidge in the picture, though, eh? When Doidge is coming on, because Scott's coming on ahead of him, did make me go, what the fuck? Where's Doidge in the list? And they're obviously doing something in training because Maloney's tried them a few times now. Like, well, maybe no Scott so much, but Wright's definitely had minutes. Although erratically, like we've said before, it's like sometimes he's starting a game, then next time he gets 9 minutes, then he's on the bench and gets 20 minutes, and then he's back at the picture again. But he obviously seen something for him on a daily basis that he's willing to keep trying.
Do you think? What do you think of Maloney's substitutions in general? Then, like over his time, do you think he's using the squad well, or are we happy with the subs?
Who was it? I don't know if it was the last episode of Longbangers or if it was one of the other Hibs podcasts. It might have been Down the Slope. What's the ruling on how many subs you can use? Is that you can make 5 subs over 3 occasions?
But three times, yeah. And if you do it at half time, it doesn't count. So you could do 1 sub at half time, and then you could do 3 subs after that.
I don't know. I think you're. So Hibs have been going through a bit of a tricky spell lately, and you will hear it in any game where Hibs are behind or Hibs aren't performing quite well. You need to get the subbies on. You need to make the subs. You need to make a change. You need to do this. You need to do that. And now that we have a manager who is, in fact, Jack Ross did it as well, but like no point crying over spilt milk. Maloney is making changes, and the criticism seems to be now, well, you're just making changes for the sake of it. Like I'm of the opinion of like when we're having a wee bit of giggle before about what changed second half. I genuinely do not know. I'm not, and I've never been a professional football player. I'm not a manager. There has to be some sort of rationale to what the person in charge of the team is doing at that point in time to be making these introductions. And I'm like I say, I'm sitting in the stand going, well, fine. Like we're trying to do something.
I think on Saturday it's worth pointing out he had to take Nisbet off. Nisbet was one foul away from getting sent off.
Yeah,
Definitely.
He'd been booked. He was diving into tackles a wee bit, and like he didn't complain. He knew his game was up. So that was an enforced substitution, I would say.
Yep.
I agree.
And Jasper as well. So we're talking about him looking sharp. So he needed to be substituted. I can't remember what the other ones that went off were.
He put McGregor on, didn't he?
Aye.
McGregor came on for the last part.
Stevenson went in the midfield for Campbell, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Campbell came off.
So that seemed, does that change seem reasonable, putting McGregor on? Just to, I mean, the obvious shout there would be that he was shoring things up at the back, although I don't think that we were looking particularly weak in any position that required McGregor to come on, but maybe he was just saving Campbell's legs.
That showed us we were lacking a midfield cover, because you had to put Stevenson in the midfield, and the only way you could do that was by bringing McGregor on at the back, because there was nobody on the bench that could have played, and that's why Campbell was playing. There's nobody else.
He had the two young lads on the bench, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because Hallberg was away in Perth, putting hearts to the sword.
The man of the match, the road.
Aye. That's another wee bit of masterstroke for Maloney. Well, obviously we won the game. We scored another goal after the subs came on. So do you think that vindicates his decision somewhat?
I don't think it had any real impact because it was really quick after the subs. But I thought Scott done all right when he came on. I thought we were criticising him, but he played a nice ball to Doig. He got away with it. The defender should have probably blocked it, but I mean, it got there, and it was a good idea, and he got away with it. So he could claim that it probably counts as a completed pass for the stats. I don't know, but and then I think he had a shot on goal. I think a ball came across the box, and he maybe got a shot away. So I think so. Like, he actually done more in that game than he's probably done in any game this season, because the best he's played was the first game he played against Dundee, wasn't it? Third game of the season. So. I think Scott was a fine, a decent sub, but I did wonder why Deutsch wasn't coming on if you bring a striker on. So and I don't think Wright done anything wrong, but he doesn't do anything to catch the eye, because I think he's wary of making a mistake.
Yeah.
So I think he's playing it safe.
Yeah, and I mentioned Melkerson earlier. It probably wasn't the right game to put him on. It was so finely balanced, and you could feel the nerve in the stadium that, you know, a slight lead, a game had to win.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the tweets I got after the game said, you know, it's a good win. Seems like a significant win for us, a big 3 points. That kind of sentiment behind the tweet. And somebody came back and said it's only Ross County. You know, Ross County had put 3 past Rangers recently. Kind of got a point off for them, and I think they had to beat Hearts as well. Did Ross County beat Hearts, or was that Dundee that beat Hearts? Well, I think Ross County they've been on a bad wee run though. Were they poor, or did we make them look poor? What do you think?
I don't think they offered much. I know a lot of the focus would have been on Charles Cook, because he was rumoured to have been a target for us, and I think the last time I checked, he was top scorer in the Premiership, but I never saw anything from him. No disrespect to them, but I don't think that they are a particularly good team, and their league standing probably reflects that. So Colin mentioned way back at the start, like the dive for I'm guessing it was their lone striker. I remember he shot them, I think it was at number 32 he was playing. Just an absolute hoodie. And like, you saw, it's funny, like, see when you saw him go for that ball, I knew what he was going to do. Probably about 30 seconds before he knew what he was going to do.
So did Macy.
And so did Macy. Macy just went,
let him get on that.
So no, I don't think. No, they're not particularly good, but we were definitely better second half.
Charles Cook was quiet, but you could say, was that because he's out on the left, but our right hand side is probably our strongest area of the pitch as well. So maybe he was getting dragged into being a bit more defensive.
There's no doubt he's a good player, and he whether he went off to or Hibs did a good job on him, he was ineffective, and that probably helped our cause.
Because they had no shots on goal. I can't remember Macy having any save to make. I think he came and punched a cross away at one point, but I can't remember them shooting at all. We never had any saves to make.
No. That's good.
Aye, so you could. Well, if it was, would we be complaining if it's us that's got no shots on target? Are we saying is it because the defence has played well against us? We probably wouldn't. We'd probably more.
We wouldn't. Aye. Well, that's what we have done when we've had no shots on target. The very shite we were in. Okay, so just before we go on to points that folk have sent into us, the win took us up to fourth place because other results went our way. It's not that far away to the split now. How do you think our chances of securing fourth are looking, John?
I think they look great. I've talked about this hundreds of times before about the optimism about looking at what's ahead of you rather than looking at what's behind you. So you can only win your own games. You can only do as well as you can in your own games. We were fortuitous in that I think Hearts got beat and the other teams around us got beat. But now we need to try and turn that to our advantage. So we'll have another derby against Hearts, I think, before the split.
Yep.
And I feel confident. Like we've got players to come back from injury. We've got players who we haven't seen play yet. We've had a shitty spell. We've sacked the manager, and now we're starting to look forward a wee bit. So no, I think third is definitely achievable.
Third.
Yeah.
Aye, third. No, I meant sorry. I thought you said third. No, definitely.
I said fourth. No, but we'll take third if you're up for it. Colin, what about you? Do you think fourth's ours for the taking, or no quite?
No, not for the taking. I mean, it's definitely achievable, and that's what we've got to aim at, a minimum of fourth. Hibs should be doing that. We had a really sticky spell that the games against St Mirren and Livingston that we might live to regret. But Saturday was a big step in the right direction. We've now got to start winning games like Dundee away, St Johnstone at home again. By all accounts, St Johnstone were much better against Hearts. I know that's a bogey ground for Hearts, but there's some really tough games ahead before the split. If we don't get fourth, I think we don't need to panic. It is a period of transition. I'm usually pretty hard to please, but I'm cutting Maloney a bit of slack here. We're still in the cup. We're doing okay. He's not convinced us all yet that he's turned it all around. Far from it, but no, there's green shoots of recovery, and not quite as optimistic as John, but yeah, we can do it. We can do fourth.
And I was going to say, do you think that I don't remember too much of Hibs trying to play out for the back, and that was one of the main bits of criticism that Maloney was coming in for previously. Do you think he's learned? Do you think he's listening and learning and trying to implement that?
I just think he's found out that Rocky's not the best at playing out from the back. Maybe it's not the wisest ideas, but I think Porteous is having a pretty good season. He still makes the odd crazy mistake, but at times, he looks a top class player, and he nearly had a goal on Saturday. It was a really good header. That was one of Laidlaw's saves.
Yep.
Even at the back, it's just we can't get a settled back three or back four, and that's a big thing in football. If you build from the back, you're able to pick the same three. We kind of saw it under Jack Ross, didn't we? It was the same three every game, or same five every game almost, and with the wing backs as well. And that's when we got a consistent run together. And Maloney's been really unlucky in that respect, that there's been so many injuries, and he's experimenting with new players that have come in.
I think Hibs have suffered from that this season as a whole, like the number of injuries that they've had. So you've had, your starting 11, a number of players are getting injured, and then their replacements have been injured. And then we obviously had the problem with the transfer window previously, where there just wasn't enough bodies in, and we're still suffering from it. So Dimitri Mitchell being the latest victim, picking up looks like it could be a significant injury, or at least significant in terms of the time that he's going to be on the sidelines. It's just like we can't catch a break, and that's evident like in the defence that you mentioned there, Colin. I think we see it in the midfield as well. Like the only constant it seems to be is Kevin Nisbet playing up front on his own.
Yeah. That worries me, even in the 80s when we were pretty average. I mean, Hibs always played with two up front at least, and I don't want to harp back. I know coaching's changed and everything, but it really frustrates me under Maloney that we're seeing every man back at set pieces. I mean, come on. I mean, what modern coaching manual tells you you've got to have every man back? If the ball gets cleared out, it just comes right back on you. You keep a man up front.
I agree with it, but we're not the only team that do it, so it must be in a modern coaching manual because they're not doing it.
But
it was
but
the derby, it was both teams doing it.
It's
It
crazy.
doesn't make sense. I know.
We Jasper back there. I mean,
fastest guy up front.
Stick him up front. They've got to have two. It's as simple as that. It's just maths.
Well, just to put a wee bit of different spin on the question, I think on Sports Scene they said there was 3 points separating fourth from ninth.
Yeah.
Should we be worried that we might get pulled into a dogfight at the other end of the table?
No, I don't think so. All it takes is, I think, about 3 or 4 wins in a row, or 3 wins in the next 4, which is doable. I can't remember the fixtures. One of them Celtic, but it's Dundee, St Johnstone, and somebody else. We'd almost seal fourth place because nobody else can win. Nobody else can string 2 wins together. Look at I seen a stat. I can't remember if it was Sports Scene or on Twitter or somewhere I saw it, or Hibs.net or something. And Hearts are about the only team that have won 2 games in the last, or this calendar year, and that are in the top, in the league. You know, we've got 1 now, but 2 in a row because of the cup match. But it's like nobody can string 2 wins together. Never mind 3 or 4. So if you do that, you're going to be pushing Hearts in that case, because that's them now getting their run that I've been predicted since about fucking September or something. But unfortunately, they've got that far ahead, and we're not winning or haven't been winning games that we can't really bite into the lead. If we can get a result on Sunday of some sort, at least they would be able to, because it could be back to 12 points again on Sunday for John, for John's claim. But if we could get a result against Celtic, which would be a nice wee change, because we've only been able to draw with them for a long time. We could maybe make them start to shite themselves a wee bit. But I think a couple of wins and we'll be all right. I'm not worried. I'm not looking down. I never looked down the way though.
Does that so with the league table being the way that it is, with there being so few points separating fourth from, was it 9th or 12th? You said, Colin.
9th.
Does that make it a weak league or a strong league?
Well, if we finish third, it's a strong league. If we finish fourth, it's because it's a weak league. If Hearts get third, it's a weak league. That's what happened to us last year, isn't it? So we've never been able to score enough goals. That's why Hearts are third. Simple as that. Aye.
Right, we'll go to the points that folk have sent in on Twitter, and then we'll have a wee look at the Celtic, and then that'll be us. TG Willis, the first one, says Doyle Hayes' second was a peach. BBC Sports Scotland again getting on Hibs back v Rockies, tripping the lad before Doyle Hayes' first. You don't hear them going on about the same about Sevco or Celtic, e.g. Bass's rugby tackle on Porto when Welch gave a free kick to them. So the BBC definitely were happy to kind of pick out the fouls for Hibs for Rocky. I think if you noticed their coverage of the Rangers game, but they had was it Jack went in and studs up on the boy. No peep about it.
They were going on about that handball, which is like never. How can that be a handball? But they did pick the Rocky win it, but it's a foul. You know what I mean? It's like I think they keep forgetting, like Chris Boyd and that especially, that banging on about VAR all the time. It works both ways. It doesn't just mean Rangers get all these penalty decisions. It means that they also get penalties against them and red cards against them.
Aye.
You know what I mean? It's not just one way, which he seems to think it's just like, well, that would be a penalty, VAR. He would have got sent off. You know what I mean? Well, you'd fucking like to think that's what would happen.
I usually be watching Scottish football that long, Colin.
Just on that, I never mentioned, and I don't know if I'm stealing anybody's thunder, the points you've got to read out, but did anybody mention the referee? In the points there? No.
I don't think so.
He used to be a good referee, right? See, when we used to get him, McLean, like he was a cup final winning ref, obviously, as well. But before that, if you got him in a derby, him or like Callum Murray, I think it was one of them, you'd go, oh, that's not bad. They're not bad for the derby. See, since we won the cup, he's just went, fuck it. And it's not, I don't think it's just us, because he's not up the rank. I think he's ever had a cup final since. You know what I mean? He's doing the list. He's not doing UEFA games or anything like that. But sadly, some of the decisions you're going, fucking hell.
They were bizarre, and they were bizarre at their worst, and at their best, they were just really, really pernickety.
Yeah. You didn't let the game flow at all.
No, there was one early doors that I think Doig was going down the left and he was trying to put a ball in, and Nisbet was actually busting a gut to get in the middle, right? And the defender was just pulling him back. And
Aye.
he gave the foul against Nisbet. And you go,
That was the first minute.
pulling the boy. Aye, it was early.
Yeah.
Why's Nisbet got to pull the guy? And then the next minutes later, the Ross County boy went to do a clearance, and he almost 2-footed the clearance because Nisbet was near him. And Nisbet just looked at the ref as if to say, "Is that all right?" The ref's like, "Play on." It's like, fuck, it was just 2-footed into just a clearance because he never got under control. But it was just niggly stuff, though. It was like what we said before, where you go, like when, as I've given you the example before, when that Falkirk game all the years ago, when my boss at the time was a Falkirk fan, they went, "What was the problem like?" And you go, "Well, we never gave us a throw in on the halfway line and that."
Aye,
But it was you couldn't pick a big massive mistake, but it was constant increments.
Just to quickly hark back to the 80s, there's an infamous game that Aberdeen beat us 5-0 at Easter Road, and it should have been maybe 1-1 or maybe 2-1 Aberdeen.
Is that when they won the league?
No. I mean, they beat us 5-0 routinely at Easter Road in these days.
Happened a lot.
But this one, it was a referee called Alan Ferguson who was the ref. And you've got to see it to believe it. Hibs got a goal disallowed for offside. He was about 3 yards on. They got a penalty for nothing. Hibs should have had a penalty. It was just a calamitous series of refereeing decisions. And it's on YouTube. And the fans totally lose the plot. You know, they're pelting the linesman with coins, and it was pretty ugly. But, you know, it just shows you, you know, that type of refereeing performance can really make people's blood boil. I think, you know, Steve McLean, I agree with you, he's really regressed.
They still use that performance to train the referees today.
That was the 80s. But no, it's just mental because I always thought he was a decent ref, and then obviously the cup final, he was there. So, and then his brother signed for us as well. So didn't he? Because did Lennon no sign his brother? And never played him, but he was covered at centre half at one point.
He was in charge of the Hibs Rangers game, wasn't he? And Morelos scored, I think, and he was just absolutely brutal that night. He got everything wrong. Just, one of the poorer refs that's around at the moment.
I'd have missed it then, because that's not my biggest thing. I'm on about referees saying, like, you're
and
not
I
a defender,
don't
Colin. I'll moan like fuck about them, and then you're like, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
So I must have been bad. Right, Ian Tully said, suggestion, a section in the show where you give full editorial control of A, the tabloids, and B, Sports Sound, and direct the chat focus. You review the current mess and how you and your guests would tackle it with improvements made. Maybe one for a future show. So what are we taking over the papers and the radio?
Let the journalists go. Don't you know?
We'll pull some strings, make it happen. Right, we'll move on. TG Willis again said, glad we've got the wee Hibs on Sunday. I think some of our players raised their game when they noticed on Sky, famous last words, and get Louis back into midfield. Stevenson back into midfield, would you be making that switch?
Have we got a defender available to
I think the only switch there that's on at the moment is McGregor going in for what you were saying earlier, Cole.
I don't know if I'd go with that. Like,
unless Hanlon's back fit, but I don't know if there's any suggestion of that. He seems to be a wee niggly one.
I suppose the other one's Doig could go into centre half, but then I don't know if I want Doig to be playing there against Celtic either. So
it'll all depend who's fit and who's available, won't it? But I mean, Lewis is great against Arbroath in midfield, and you expect they're going to have most of the ball. You know, I mean, they are a good side, no doubt about it. You've got them playing well, and Hibs are now a possession team, but I don't think we will be on Sunday. We're going to have to play a different style of football to combat.
Hoping they got extra time on Thursday night over there in Norway and take it out of them a bit, and then it's Sunday. It's first thing Sunday morning, isn't it? It's like 12 o'clock kickoff or something. So hopefully we can catch them early. Since we've done well against Celtic, we've scored early goals, haven't we? So
yeah, and they've conceded 5 in their last 2 games. So I mean, it's a good time to be getting them, arguably.
Yeah.
Neil Renton said, any chance of discussing the antics of Hibs fans booing either players coming off or players coming off? Management decision to making the subs on Saturday. Covered that, Neil. Stuart said, anyone else guilty of thinking when Jake Doyle-Hayes went to hit volley for the second, don't hit it, you're not going to score another? Did any of you have that thought as he was lining it up?
No, I called goal before I'd left, as it was leaving his foot. I was like, I done a bit of noise when I could see it. You could see it for that behind it. Do more of it.
We need to find out from if he shouted "fuck all" when he hit it. That's what we asked Martin Boyle when he scored against Livy. Brunswick Bill said it's good to see with bringing on Wright and Scott with 15 minutes to go that Maloney's not being influenced by the Boo Boys. And you would have to say that for Maloney, that he's no let it get to him, has he? Because he's had that kind of reaction to the subs before, maybe not quite as vocal, but he's definitely been swayed by it.
I wonder what he's thinking, Like when because we could hear it. I mean, it wasn't. I don't know if it was a clear boo, but obviously it was for some folk. But it was a definite unrest on the east. Noise who were at it. You must be going, what the fuck? Like we're winning, we're playing all right. Like it's just, I don't know. They must.
I think
be wondering
was there no suggestion of that in a previous game where the fans were getting a wee bit restless and Maloney was seemingly at the side of the pitch telling the players to calm down and do what he wanted them to do rather than
I think that was
the pressure get to them.
The Aberdeen game, maybe even way back at Christmas, before Christmas. He came out and he was giving it the calm down because I think everybody started going mental because Macy didn't kick it out quick enough or throw it out quick enough. And he came out and he was giving it the sort of calm the fuck down thing. So I mean, it's there. It's just
there's a bit of balance. So you don't want a manager that's just got to ignore the fans all the time. I'm not saying he should be swayed by them, but for him to be right and everybody else is wrong, that comes across as arrogance. I'm not saying that's the case with Maloney, but
it's a very fine line that the manager has to walk.
Yeah,
that was almost the death knell for Heckenbottom, wasn't it? I mean, we subbed off Scott Allen and everybody booed, and after the game he says, I didn't realise I wasn't allowed to sub him.
Yeah, that's right.
And then that.
And he isn't. He's still not that way.
He came across as a smart arse, didn't he, by saying that. He kind of lost the fans with that comment.
Okay, then let's just look ahead into Sunday's game against Celtic. They are on the back of a European game, which I always think is quite a good time to get. Rangers or Celtic. John, how do you see the game going?
I think, like Colin suggests, the Celtic are a really good team. However, they have been conceding goals of late, so I've got to think. I've got to back up what I was saying earlier about optimism, and looking up the table and thinking we've got a chance. Like no one, I think, it wasn't that long ago, and even now to a certain extent, folk are thinking that we're in for a relegation battle. But through circumstance or whatever else, there's a chance. So fuck it, let's go at them.
Sure.
2-0 Hibs.
And Colin, how about you? Same question. How do you think it'll go? And what's the score?
I think 2-0 would be a bit of a stretch. I think we do have a chance, but I do think we'll concede. I think the way Celtic play, the way they come at you, I think if I'm letting my heart rule my head, I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I just didn't see enough on Saturday to really convince me we've come on leaps and bounds and we're good enough to give Celtic a really good game. But if they've got the attitude, maybe John can go in and do the team talk, because that's what we need. A bit of blood and thunder. Hope they believe in themselves.
Are you available for the team talk on Sunday?
Always.
Right, so you say 1-1 to Hibs. And
1-1 to Hibs.
1-1 to
Hibs. Home goals count double or something. No, I'm going to say 1-0 Hibs. Getting about them early doors, 12 o'clock on a Sunday, catch them off guard after their late flight home on Thursday night, Friday morning. Lackey prep and all that stuff, getting about them. Kick them up and down Easter Road.
You can hear them moaning in the tabloids now about them being forced to play the early game. That would do nicely.
Could even go back half an hour myself, to be honest with you. My daughter's got a game Sunday morning and I'll be dashing about trying to get there. I reckon I'll miss the first 15 minutes on Sunday. A pain in the arse at kick-off time.
Soak up that early pressure off them, frustrate them, and then get the goal second half. Just give the ball to Jake Dolly Hayes on the edge of the box again.
Yeah.
2-0.
I think they'll be tired after the European game because that Bodo divided by Glant team, they look they're like high energy. Do you know, they give them a bit of a run around at Parkhead, and you'd imagine they'll be looking to do the same at home. And I think Celtic will have to work very, very hard in that game, which I think will work in our favour, hopefully.
What's the score for the first leg?
3-1.
3-1.
Bodo divided by Glimt winning?
Yeah. They should pick a name, they should have a maths thing for a name. Pick one of the two. I've never heard the name at all until I can't remember if we spoke about this in the podcast already, until Jack Ross got sacked, and somebody suggested we go for their manager.
Their manager, yeah.
And then next
was
thing
it
you know,
Wilson?
they're playing Celtic. We've signed 2 players off
Signed
them.
2
They're,
of their players.
fucking,
Aye.
they're fans are at our game watching stuff.
Aye.
They're fucking everywhere. I don't care how this has happened. They've just appeared. Anyway, right, that's us out of time for tonight. Colin, thanks very much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and we would highly recommend the book Bestie to Beastie to Belgium, Hibs through the 80s. Get your hands on a copy and enjoy it. Colin, John, thanks for your time tonight as well. We'll be back on Thursday with Short Bangers. Do we have anything in between, do we? Are we interviewing Maloney this week? Is that meant to be happening?
I think it's meant to be, but we've not heard anything.
We meant to have him last week and it got pulled last minute, which was a bit gutting. So we might have an extra episode. We might know. We'll no count our chickens.
Provided he's plotting a 2-0 downfall at Celtic at the weekend, I'm happy to miss out on that interview.
John's going down to do the team talk on whatever night is. Aye.
Well, if we do interview, and John, if you're listening, which I'm sure you will be, why would you not be? John, well, if we come to see you to interview you, John will bring some team talk notes. Well, for it, pre-recorded.
They're just flesh and blood. They're no immortal. Get into them.
Time to go. Right, thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next time.
County line, I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.